The coronation of Tsar Nicholas II on May 26, 1896, was meant to be a celebration of imperial grandeur, a display of divine right, and a spectacle for the Russian people. Instead, it became a tragic foreshadowing of the turmoil that would engulf his reign and lead to the fall of the Russian Empire. How did an event meant to solidify his rule spiral into disaster? How did this event shape the fate of the last Russian Tsar? And what can the coronation tell us about the downfall of the Romanovs? Let's step into the past.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Curious Past, the podcast where we uncover the forgotten and fascinating corners of history. I'm Shan.
And this is Danny, and today we're traveling back to Imperial Russia, where power, tragedy, and fate collided in one of history's most ominous coronations.
The year was 1896. Russia was at a crossroads. The mighty empire stretched from Europe to the Pacific, but beneath its grand facade unrest simmered. Nicholas II had just ascended the throne in 1894 after the sudden death of his father, Alexander III. Though he was trained for the role, Nicholas was widely seen as ill-prepared for the challenges of ruling a vast and increasingly restless empire. His coronation was an opportunity to solidify his legitimacy and reinforce the divine authority of the Romanov Dynasty. He was young, inexperienced, and by many accounts reluctant to rule. Yet, the coronation was meant to be a moment of unity, reinforcing the divine authority of the Romanovs. The stage was set for a spectacle unlike any other.
The coronation ceremony itself took place in Moscow's Uspensky Cathedral, inside the Kremlin, a tradition dating back centuries. It was an extravagant affair filled with religious rites, military processions, and imperial splendor. Nicholas was officially crowned, and Empress Alexandra was anointed as Tsarina. The Russian nobility, foreign dignitaries, and the Orthodox Church all played their parts in this momentous occasion, a place steeped in centuries of tradition. The rituals were mesmerizing, incense filled the air, the golden regalia gleamed, and as Nicholas placed the crown upon his head, he was officially declared emperor and autocrat of all the Russias. But even as the aristocracy reveled in the grandeur, something ominous loomed just beyond the Kremlin walls.
While the nobility enjoyed their feasts and dances, the common people were anticipating their own celebrations.
Now, let's put ourselves in the shoes of an ordinary Russian citizen in 1896. Most of the population lived in deep poverty, bound to the harsh realities of serfdom just a few decades prior. Free food, beer, and souvenirs? This wasn't just a fun day out, it was a rare chance to experience something beyond the daily struggle.
4 days after the coronation, the real trouble began. A public celebration was planned at Khodynka Field, where free food, beer, and commemorative gifts were to be handed out.
Picture this: a massive field filled with more than 500,000 commoners, all eager to receive a small token of their emperor's generosity. But then, rumors spread that there wouldn't be enough gifts for everyone. Panic took hold. And in the early morning hours of May 30, a massive crowd surged forward, desperate to claim their share.
The unprepared and poorly organized event quickly turned deadly. The field, littered with ditches and uneven terrain, became a death trap. As people pushed forward, thousands were trampled underfoot. Over 1,300 people lost their lives, and thousands more were injured. What was meant to be a joyous occasion instead turned into a horrifying bloodbath. This horrific event, later called the Khodynka Tragedy, cast a dark shadow over Nicholas II's reign just days after it had officially begun.
The tragedy sent shockwaves throughout Russia, and what did Nicholas do? He went ahead with the celebrations. That very night, he attended a grand ball hosted by the French ambassador, dancing, drinking, and entertaining guests as if nothing had happened. Imagine the contrast. Outside, families wept for their lost loved ones, while inside, the aristocracy waltzed under gilded chandeliers sipping champagne.
Many saw this as a betrayal. Nicholas, the supposed little father of Russia, seemed indifferent to the suffering of his people. The young Tsar, who should have been mourning with his subjects, appeared callous and detached. Though he later donated money to victims' families, the damage to his reputation was irreversible, and that, my friends, was the beginning of the end.
The Khodynka tragedy wasn't just an isolated disaster. It was a sign, a crack in the foundation of an empire that was already teetering on the edge. Over the next 2 decades, Nicholas II faced crisis after crisis. The 1905 Revolution, Bloody Sunday, the catastrophic involvement in World War I.
Bloody Sunday was a pivotal event in Russian history that set the stage for the 1905 revolution. On this day, thousands of peaceful protesters, led by the Orthodox priest Father Georgy Gapon, marched to the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg to present a petition to Tsar Nicholas II. They sought better working conditions, fair wages, and political reforms, including the establishment of a representative government.
However, the march ended in tragedy when imperial troops fired on the unarmed crowd, killing and wounding hundreds. This massacre shattered the people's belief in the benevolence of the Tsar, earning him the nickname Nicholas the Bloody and igniting revolutionary fervor across the empire.
Bloody Sunday acted as a catalyst for a year-long wave of unrest, known as the 1905 Revolution, which saw strikes and worker uprisings. Over 400,000 workers went on strike in St. Petersburg alone, demanding rights and political representation. Peasant revolts, widespread land seizures, property destruction, and attacks on landowners occurred in the countryside. Mutinies in the military. The most famous was the battleship Potemkin mutiny, where sailors rebelled against their officers. Nationalist movements. Various ethnic groups, including Poles, Finns, and Georgians, demanded autonomy or independence from the Russian Empire. Formation of Soviets. The first Soviet Workers' Council was created in St. Petersburg, led by Leon Trotsky. These councils later became key in the 1917 Russian Revolution.
To quell the unrest, Tsar Nicholas II issued the October Manifesto in October 1905, which promised civil liberties like freedom of speech, assembly, and press, created the Duma, a legislative assembly to give people a voice in government, and allowed the formation of political parties.
However, the Tsar soon undermined these reforms by dissolving the Duma repeatedly and using brutal repression, such as arrests, executions, and pogroms to crush opposition.
Though the 1905 revolution failed to overthrow the Tsar, it exposed the weakness of the autocracy and forced limited reforms, radicalized workers, peasants, and revolutionaries, setting the stage for the Bolshevik-led revolutions in 1917. Plus, it showed the power of mass protest and strikes, influencing future revolutionary movements in Russia.
Essentially, the Russian people, once loyal subjects, slowly turned against their ruler. By 1917, the Romanov Dynasty collapsed under the weight of its own mistakes.
Could things have been different? Could Nicholas have bridged the gap between himself and his people, or was his fate sealed the moment he stepped onto that coronation platform?
Many historians point to Khodynka as an early sign that Nicholas lacked the decisiveness and empathy necessary to rule effectively. Furthermore, many historians look back at the Khodynka tragedy as a warning sign, a moment when Nicholas could have forged a bond with his people, but instead solely defied the growing chasm between ruler and ruled.
History is full of moments like these, small cracks that foretell the collapse of empires. The coronation of Nicholas II was both a grand celebration and a tragic omen.
The blood spilled at Khodynka Field was a chilling preview of the greater turmoil to come. The last Tsar of Russia began his reign with a disaster and ended it with the collapse of an empire.
What do you think? Could Nicholas II have changed his fate? Or was the fall of the Romanovs inevitable? Let's keep the discussion going. Let us know in the comments below.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe to The Curious Past for more deep dives into history. Until next time, stay curious.